to have masculinity is to make these sacrifices.
And a big penis.
And of course, that goes without saying.
You gotta be hanging dong and making difficult choices.
The amount of sacrifice to big penis ratio is like, the bigger your penis, you don't gotta sacrifice.
Yeah,
anything.
you're fine. Yeah.
But you're small, you gotta make up for it.
Yeah. Okay, well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Break Room. It's your two favorite co-workers, Alex Berg and Brian Kim.
That's
We're
right.
going to talk about some stuff. As always, a lot of you have been active in the comment section, having pretty surprisingly thoughtful conversations.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought YouTube comments were thoughtful?
Genuinely proud of everybody commenting on these videos for like just the overall tenor of it. But so we're gonna get to some of those later on. Real quick, though, I want to start off with the Gentle Roast of the Week, which is a segment we started informally last week, and we will keep going every week that we get Gentle Roasts. So this week's Gentle Roast of the Week comes from Sky Lillian 99, who says, "It's really giving stepdad, stepson energy."
Are they saying like generally the whole show?
I think last week you were trying to explain like an anime thing to me or something, and I was probably just going like, interesting. Okay, and what do you like about that? You know,
is the roast to the stepdad, the stepson?
I think everyone's getting roasted.
Oh God!
I think when you put something in the oven, unless your oven sucks,
you're right.
You know, like everything gets
whole
roasted
get
evenly.
roasted.
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah.
I will say, I think people do have. Like, being a stepdad does have like a vibe to it, or like, oh, it's like just a stepdad. But I guess stepson also has a vibe to it.
I think
it
does.
You don't think about it.
Yeah.
Like a stepson's kind of like, whatever. I don't care about anything.
I will say, very recently, my girlfriend became a stepmother, which
Right.
like she had kind of already been in that role, but now it's a formal thing. Watching her and my daughter not use the term, you know what I mean? Like actively, like the word stepmom has more presence in their relationship for all the dodging around it, because they're both just they don't need it. You know, like I don't care, but it's like neither one of them really wants to lean into the term.
Yeah.
And so you could just feel them both going like, hey, you.
Hey,
it's very adorable. It's very sweet.
My husband's daughter.
So I also want to just right at the top, and then we'll get in your weekend catch-up stuff. A lot of you want to hear about Spider-Man today.
Rightfully so.
Rightfully so. It's biggest box office opening in history, we think.
It's either all movies or definitely just
Definitely
Marvel. Definitely Marvel, but maybe all movies.
However, I've been hanging out with my family all weekend and haven't had a chance to see it yet. But Brian has. Yeah, Brian, giving the appropriate amount of head-shaking judgment here. I'm going to see it tomorrow night, so we'll talk about it in next week's episode. But Brian, what is your spoiler-free review for the people who want a little bit of Spidey right at the top?
I will. I mean, I think if you like Spider-Man, you're going to love this movie. It's great. I think so. It's what I think about this movie is that it's probably the first Spider-Man MCU movie that I feel like feels like a Spider-Man movie first. And I mean that in like a good way. Like this feels like a Spider-Man movie. I was talking to Eric about this earlier today, and it felt like maybe the first 3 Spider-Man movies in the MCU was kind of like Spider-Man vying for attention from the greater MCU and the Avengers in general.
I can see that. Homecoming a little bit less so for me of those first 3, but definitely Far From Home felt like we're trying to,
so it's like, Spider-Man's like the new kid in the MCU block, but this one kind of feels like it flipped the script where it's a Spider-Man movie first, but it kind of feels like these MCU things are trying to vie for their spot time in the spotlight of the Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Like it's Hulk trying to get in there, and it's like the Avengers trying to get in there, and the Punisher trying to get in there, and Spoiler is trying to get in there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so I think that felt really, really fun. I have some notes because I'm really bad at thinking. I just generally really like what they did with like Peter Parker's arc in this.
He's kind of a sad boy in this movie,
He's a sad boy,
right? Yeah.
and it's like he just feels more adult, which he is. He literally is.
Yeah.
This is the next part of his arc. And without getting like too nitty gritty in the spoilers, but just like the overall theming.
I think you could speak about vibes without spoiling anything.
So there's this interesting TikTok that I watched, or like some kind of short content that I thought was interesting because I didn't even think about it. That a lot of media where it portrays like a heroic male figure tend to portray the sacrifice they make as noble and necessary.
Yeah.
And specifically to hold onto the sacrifice themselves. Like, as a hero, you have to take on the responsibilities yourself alone for the sake of everyone else. And that's something that is noble. Even in the MCU, a really prime example of this is Loki, where at the end, even though as an arc, it fits, where he has he's burdened with glorious purpose. And at the end, his burden is that he must do this by himself. He has to hold the timelines together in order to save everybody. But it's a very lonely journey.
Yeah.
It's still framed as heroic and necessary in a way that I think, if that kind of messaging is sent to young boys all the time, you start to like understand like, oh, this is the frame of mind that a lot of young men will have, is that to be a proper man, to have masculinity is to make these sacrifices.
And a big penis.
And of course, that goes without saying.
You gotta be hanging dong and making difficult choices.
The amount of sacrifice to big penis ratio is like, the bigger your penis, you don't gotta sacrifice.
Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
But you're small, you gotta make up for it.
Yeah. I know. I know the level of sacrifice a small penis takes.
That's why I'm alone every day. Okay, I have to make up for the fact. But I think what this movie does that's great is that it actually turns that messaging around. I know in No Way Home, it ends in that sacrifice.
Yeah.
But it's only a part of his overall journey.
Yeah.
And in this journey, he learns that like doing things by myself isn't the way to go. In fact, you can't do it and you shouldn't do it.
Oh, I love that. That's a great inversion.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, especially because it's a Spider-Man movie, showing that and that as the messaging is particularly impactful. The male loneliness epidemic or whatever.
Hey, I saw Adolescence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is a way to combat that, even just like a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's fun. I think it's cool. Especially, I also was talking with Eric, like in a post-COVID era where we're all realizing maybe having friends in real life is cool.
Yeah, company can be good. Right? Because that's normally the arc of every team-up movie is like, oh, they don't get along, but it's like, oh, what if everybody was just like in a functional, healthy relationship? And then we showed like how good that can be.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that as the lesson, I think is really good. But then overall, I mean, the set pieces were great. The choreography was really good. They mentioned in interviews that they got a lot of influence from the Spider-Man games, which
I saw that. I love the. I mean, I love the
understand.
Insomniac games, but yeah,
I could definitely see the vision. And actually, one more thing to say to close out this non-spoiler review.
Yeah, I mean, please say as many things as you want. Everybody, I can tell everybody is mad that I haven't seen it yet. They just want to discuss it. So I think you should discuss as much as you can.
What I've come to realize, because from the other things I've said on this channel before, is that I was worried that the MCU was getting a little confusing in terms of like continuity of like what's happening here. Like, why is Punisher here? Is this the same Punisher as the Punisher in his special where he's just murdering an entire town? He's in this Spider-Man. Why is Hulk like he's like Bruce Banner, and he's afraid of his own Hulk again? Like, what's happening? Like this, the Hand is in this movie.
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing there? Is Daredevil gonna explain anything? But watching this made me realize if a movie's good enough, I don't care.
Yeah.
I realize I don't care. It's just fun to see Punisher hang out with Spider-Man.
Well, I think that's like when the shared cinematic universe stuff works best is when the stuff in the shared cinematic universe feels just like kind of organic, like it's shared and it doesn't feel like shoehorned in. You know, like I always think I always use Age of Ultron as an example of like there was like a Thor scene in that felt so shoehorned, and it was like, I love Guardians too. It's one of my favorites in the MCU. But the post-credit scenes in that are like, hey, just tell me you're gonna make a Ravagers movie. I'll get excited about it. It doesn't need to be part of this story, you know. I'm really happy to hear that it feels like that.
Yeah. It genuinely feels like this did make me feel like, yeah, Marvel's back. It knows what it's doing. I mean, maybe specifically Spider-Man. Like, people love Spider-Man.
Spider-Man never really left.
Spider-Man never left. Spider-Man always hits.
Don't call it a comeback. He's been here for years. yeah.
But it's, I think Spider-Man, in retrospect, just thinking about it, has like a unique spot in the Marvel universe in general, because I think he lives really well in every aspect of the Marvel universe. Like, he fits in a grounded world. He fits in a superpowered world.
Yeah.
He can fight against Hulk, and he can team up with Punisher, and it doesn't feel weird.
Yeah.
In a way that, like, if the Punisher was fighting alongside Thor
or Groot.
Yeah.
Hang on. Now I want to see a Punisher Groot.
I guess they kind of did that with Bucky.
Yeah, that's
where
true,
he's like shooting guns with these guys. But Spider-Man kind of fits in that world really nicely. So yeah, if you haven't seen Spider-Man, go see Spider-Man. Yeah. It's great. It's a lot of fun. And ultimately, that's what Marvel is about. It's about getting entertained and maybe have a little bit of fun lessons along the way.
Yeah, you can have a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. You know, like, you can learn a lesson about, like, it's okay to ask for help. You know, and have some web slinging in the meantime.
Some lessons.
While we're in review corner, I know that you have the next thing in the prompter, but I'm going to jump ahead and jump back this because we're talking reviews. Several weeks ago, Brian wrote in prompter, "Rhythm Heaven fucks," and recommended that I play it. And I came back and my review was, "Fuck Rhythm Heaven." I am here to tell you I was wrong. Rhythm Heaven fucks.
Let's go. That's what it was all about.
So what happened is my daughter got to town and she wanted to play a video game. And I was like, oh, I got this game. It's like a lot of mini games, you know, and we started playing it, and multiplayer Rhythm Heaven hits so much harder for me than solo Rhythm Heaven does. And like the multiplayer games are just as weird and unhinged. You like one of them, you're shaving onions and turnips, you know, and then there's cake weight. And but the one that really broke my brain and made me go like, I was wrong about Rhythm Heaven was we were playing Tennis Quest. And first, Tennis Quest, you're staring at 4 twerking badminton players right. hopping towards a massive tooth to save a king from a polar bear. And they give you these like almost like subtitles before each wave of enemies comes forward. Lila and I made it to the first wave of enemies right when Ann walked into the room and just said, "We are the Chestnut Lads." We were like, well, all 3 of us were like, "What is this?" You know, like, and that made it break open for me. Yeah. And then we started playing Sick Beats, which is hard as hell. And we got to the 3rd Sick Beats level, and all 3 of us were like, when my sister gets into town, she's really good at rhythm games, much better than I am. We're like, we're going to have to do Sick Beats with her. We've gotten pretty close on Sick Beats 3. We got down to like 38, like 39, like sub 40 on Sick Beats 3. Haven't done it yet. She leaves town and, you know, Wednesday morning.
It's hard.
So it's so hard.
It's crazy. And
it's so hard.
It's definitely the games that you need to play. Like, you can play with less than 4 people, but I think in order to make it more fair, they make the CPUs not perfect.
The CPU sucks.
Like, they do it on purpose.
Oh,
but
the CPU is great when it's time to play Wrestle Sprint.
Right.
Oh, CPU's real good at Wrestle Sprint. It just doesn't know how Sick Beats works. It's like, come on. The other thing I did to make it fun is Lila, we were playing and my daughter had like, she like, you know, like went to call a friend or something, was like, oh, I'll be back in a minute. And so I went through and they give you these nicknames you can choose in Rhythm Heaven. Yeah. And I changed all the nicknames from very family-friendly things because it reads them out loud, and I thought this would be funny. And now all the names on my save are like anus, crack, zits, you know, butts. And so sometimes like when you're playing like, you know, volleyball-ish or something, it'll be like, anus, crack, you know, it'll call you out. But then also at the end of the games, it gives you these like kind of write-ups of what happened and like who did what. And I'm gonna find the one that I sent to you the other night that made me laugh so hard. We had been playing Tennis Quest, and at the end of the game we got really good, which is like whatever. But the game said to us, and I quote, "I shower praises upon you. Heroic penis dealt the final blow. Hail Anus the crab hunter."
Dude, I'm saying, it's, you know what? Good on Nintendo for not censoring all that stuff.
Yeah, so and letting the AI read it out.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Penis, anus,
the crab hunter.
Yeah,
dude, Rhythm Heaven is a good game.
Yeah, it's great. So, anyways, I know that I had been pretty harsh on it, and I have had such a wildly more positive experience with it playing it multiplayer that it's made me go back and even enjoy the single player stuff more.
That's great.
Yeah.
Hell
so yeah, Rhythm Heaven. Okay, so now what else did you get up to this weekend? You had you had like a life moment.
Well, this weekend played games and watched Spider-Man. But the other thing was my fiance went to go get wedding dress shopping.
Did you go with her? Like, can you see the shopping process?
I didn't go with her because we're like, we aren't doing a lot of traditional things, but one of the things just to keep it fun is like I'm not going to see any of the things that she's
so you
wearing.
get to be surprised.
Yeah, I get to be surprised. So no, but she found like a vintage shop nearby that had vintage wedding dresses, because she's just like the type who like, I like wearing something that was loved before. I liked wearing something that like other people have worn, and I think her style is a lot more. She doesn't really like the traditional like poofy like gowns that like she's like either makes you look like a cake or a curtain that she doesn't really like.
It's a good description.
So she found a place nearby, and she like fell in love with a couple dresses, and she like got one that she really likes and got another one just because it made her look good. So she just got another one. I'm like, okay, you know what?
Yeah, hey, why not? Yeah,
why not? So that's really exciting, and it's just another step. Like, oh, this is becoming real.
Yeah,
this is becoming real. So I'm excited to see what that'll be.
Just on like the using old stuff. When I got married very untraditionally. I
sure
decided to do it coldly and pragmatically on a Zoom call, and then just went to a courthouse a week later. So I still have to propose. My wife wants a proposal, but we're already married. So she knows that she has to say yes, and has begged me to not make it a public or embarrassing proposal because I already know the answer. But one of the reasons I haven't proposed yet is because I wanted I come from a family of Swiss jewelers. So my grandfather was a jeweler, his father was a jeweler, his father's father was a jeweler. And so after I got married, I called my mother. I was like, "Hey, do we have any like ring?" Then the family jewelry store doesn't exist anymore. It died with my grandfather. So I was like, "Do we have any like rings, like family rings? Like I would love like something to like continue that lineage." And she was like, "Yeah," and found this like gorgeous ring with a fake sapphire in the middle of it. I mean, it's still a sapphire. It's just like not, it's just doped quartz or whatever. But
right.
But and then like that my great grandmother wore. So this is like 100-year-old ring that a Swiss senior citizen wore every day for like 40 years. But it looks, I love the way it looks. It looks like the kind of ring that in the first act of a horror movie. Sure. You would find in a vintage shop, and then everyone would be like, "I don't know what happened, but Dave's soul got sucked out of his body." Like it looks like a ring you could get like your mind trapped inside of if you weren't careful enough.
What does that say about marriage?
Yeah,
curious.
it's a soul sucking endeavor, I think.
Wait, no one told me. I'm about to get married soon.
Anyways, here's my mid-90s stand-up routine. My mother-in-law. Wow. Yeah, well, that's great. I'm happy for you guys that you're moving through the steps to make it feel more and more real.
Sir. I'm an adult, baby. No matter what you guys say, I'm not a little baby Brian.
It's a little baby Brian.
I'm an old head now.
I had forgotten about the nickname, but thank you for reminding me.
No,
Hashtag little baby Brian. Drop it in the comments.
The Streisand effect.
So let's get into some headline stuff.
Yeah.
One of the things that I feel compelled to speak to is Emily Wilson's absolutely scathing review of the Odyssey. I'll say flat out, like, I think that it's hard to argue with Emily Wilson's review because she's critiquing it as an adaptation of the source text. She has an expertise and a familiarity not only with the text, but the traditions of interpreting it that go back 3,000 years that I can never come close to. I think her review is too harsh. I also think the backlash to her review is too harsh.
Yeah.
And part of it for me is her review. One of the things is people are like, there's a contingency of people saying that this is sour grapes because she didn't get invited to the premiere. I think that's a way of diminishing her stance. I don't think it's sour grapes. She's making so much money off of her book selling because of the Odyssey. I think what it is Christopher Nolan quoted her famous interpretation of the opening line, "Tell me about a complicated man," many times in press for the Odyssey, which suggests and implies that if she hadn't signed off on it, that that his version of the Odyssey was in some way tethered to hers. And so I think part of her review is going like, no, it's really not, and here's all the reasons why. But then part of the other issue is her review of the movie is being read in the same spaces as normal movie reviews. But what it really is an academic takedown. And if you read, one of my favorite subgenres of science articles are when academics just get fucking catty. It's great. Watching an academic tear another academic's theoretical work to shreds is so enjoyable to me. It's such a guilty pleasure. And that's what this is.
Yeah.
You know, so like as a movie review, I think it's overly harsh. As a review of an adaptation, I think it's probably pretty spot on. But I'm curious what your opinion is on it, you know, like as someone who maybe doesn't have my same penchant for academic bitchery. But yeah, what did you read it? What were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I read Emily Wilson's critique, and I hadn't read her adaptation or her translation of the Odyssey yet. But honestly, maybe it's because I've heard in the ether how harsh her criticism was, or like from you guys and from like the online and stuff. When I read it, I was like, honestly, I don't even think it was that harsh. I mean, granted, she was saying things like, this is like not like this is.
It's pretty harsh. I think it's fair to say. I think it's harsh, and I think she intended it to be harsh.
Right, but I guess it's different from harsh and mean. Like, I don't think she was being mean about it necessarily. Like, no, mean-spirited.
I don't think she was being mean-spirited, but I definitely think she was avoiding every opportunity to soften it at all.
100%.
Which is for me like a very academic tone, you know, like.
Yes. Which is why I think, because she comes from an academic background and she gives plenty of reasoning for her criticisms. In the critique.
They don't feel emotional. They feel reasoned.
Yeah. It's like, it's not like I hated this. It sucks. I don't get it. It's like, this sucks because from when I did this, like, this is why it works in the Odyssey, but he didn't do that at all. And so I think that's a bad call. And I think blah, blah, blah. Like, it's very reasoned out.
Yeah.
Every single critique.
I agree.
In a way that, at least for me, I'm like, well, I can't hate it because like she has her reasons to not like a piece. And she is very valid to not like it. And I think there are some responses to her. I think particularly that one that got like kind of famous.
The Joyce Carol Oates.
The Joyce Carol Oates was like, rather than disagreeing with the interpretation of Homer in a collegial manner, she speaks in the crude language of MAGA folks attacking someone with ideas different from hers.
I don't think that's.
I don't think that's fair.
What's doubly funny about that Joyce Carol Oates thing, and then this kind of segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which is just sort of the tone policing surrounding this vocal female critic of a celebrated white man, you know, like, but you know, even Joyce Carol Oates is like, this review is too harsh. It's this language of MAGA. It's divisive. But if you want to see a good Odyssey adaptation, go see Armand Asante's 1997 miniseries.
Because she doesn't even really like the Nolan's Odyssey.
She doesn't really even defend Nolan's Odyssey.
Yeah.
She just says that she thinks Emily Wilson is being too harsh.
Yeah.
And you know, I think that's for me Emily Wilson's criticism is kind of a backlash. It feels like, and then there's backlash to the backlash, which is exhausting. But one of the things that I've kind of noticed is a lot of people critiquing her tone and not engaging with the substance of what she's saying, which is something that I don't think happens to to men as much. You know, I don't know, because I am a man, and everyone just says, hey, Berg, your ideas are so good.
Right.
You know, hey, Berg, here's a free coffee. You know, like that's my,
and it has to be because you're a man. Because listen, I've heard you talk.
Yeah, there's no other reason.
There's no other reason.
If you were engaging with the substance of what I said, you'd be like, pay double for that coffee, you know, like, but there is a thing where it's like, I've read plenty of harsh film reviews of plenty of big movies, and the reviews themselves haven't become talking points in the same way this one has. And I think it's because there is a section of the commentariat, you know, which is a nebulous term, and I use it all the time because sometimes it means like people like us, sometimes it means like actual journalists, sometimes it means like revered critics. But on something like Twitter, where those, or Reddit, where those people all exist side by side, you kind of have to treat them in the same context. You know, there's been a flattening of those spaces, which for better or worse, just kind of is where we exist. But it feels like the commentariat can't really engage with the substance of what she's saying. So they're engaging with the shape of what she's saying, which is this mean and nasty. And there's almost a sense of, hey, you should be more grateful to Christopher Nolan for popularizing this. And like that, I think is really gross. Again, I think it's pretty harsh. I don't agree with it. I didn't love the Odyssey. I didn't hate it like she seemed to hate it. But I appreciate why, if you were an academic whose most central piece of work that you're associated with is an interpretation of the Odyssey, and someone was going out quoting your interpretation of the Odyssey as being central to his vision of the Odyssey, I think it's absolutely fair to be like, no, I need to put some distance between our two takes on this.
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's so valid.
And it is funny, even though it is kind of put at the end, like a footnote almost, where it's like, at the end of the day, though, I'm kind of glad he did it.
That's the other thing. Is like at the end of it, she's like, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to see a movie, you know, like,
if it helped people get introduced to the Odyssey more, you know, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, in her copy, the Odyssey is flying off the shelves right now. Probably
largely
will be,
I think largely due to the fact that this Odyssey has come out
absolutely
and like, has said that.
I don't think she would deny that either.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, so it's I know that even in the lead up to the movie, I cited her translation so many times as one of the reasons I was so excited for the Odyssey. And so, you know, maybe I'm feeling a little bit more compelled to defend her than usual. But I do think fundamentally, also, not for nothing, her critique was published in the London Review of Books. Right. It's not being published like, you know, in a normal like film outlet. You know, it's being published somewhere where clearly just the place where it was published is already framing this more as a discussion around the Odyssey as source text than anything filmic, you know, like, and she does have some like weird critiques of it as a film, and it's like, oh, it's so loud and bombastic, and it's like, yeah,
she does have a lot of, you know, like specific critiques of Nolan.
Yeah, you know, like, and there's that stuff where I'm like, well, you know, like that I think is kind of just like, yeah, it's a movie. It's going to be different than the book. It's a different medium. And I think there are responses to her I've seen that critique those aspects of it. And those, I think, are dealing with the substance of what she's saying and are engaging with it on its own terms. But all the foofara about like, how dare this loud-mouthed woman critique Christopher Nolan? Just, it feels bad. Feels bad.
It's also interesting to me because I think, at least for me, when things are like mean-spirited or like harsh or whatever, I think who you're directing that harshness to also matters. Because this is Emily Wilson, who is a academic who, you know, did the translation of the Odyssey, but she's not punching down at like a indie creator who's like just trying to make his version. It's Christopher Nolan.
It's Christopher Nolan, yeah.
This guy can handle criticism.
Yes.
Like, also, even if she criticizes it, like, this thing made like $1 billion. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So to like police her tone specifically against how she reacted to Nolan's interpretation, I think is silly because, again, Nolan is a huge name. People will still continue to idolize him.
Agreed.
People will still continue to love working with him.
Yeah.
This isn't going to change his career in any way. That I think it's fine that she went harsh. Again, if she went the exact amount of harshness to like an up and coming, just fresh out of college
Yeah,
kid.
if she like went and saw like, you know, Obsession and was like,
It's
Curry Barker's never made a film before and it shows, you'd be like, look, I mean,
like, relax.
it's okay if you didn't like
It's his
it, but
first
chill
film.
out. Yeah.
But because it's against like an industry titan, it's fine. It's just
And again, like few people on the planet are as have the platform Emily Wilson. Name 3 other famous Odyssey translators.
Yeah.
You know, like her opinion is as valid as anybody's. You know, I will say I watched the Odyssey. I thought it was really well made. I felt nothing. I felt significantly more reading this review of the Odyssey.
Sure.
Like I thought it was overly harsh, but I did at least like while reading go like, whew, man. In a way I never did during the whole movie.
That's so funny.
It's pretty funny. But
she's the gift that keeps giving.
It really is.
That keeps giving. I do want to say, I think one thing I disagree with Emily Wilson's take in general is that she makes a claim that Nolan doesn't say anything interesting or convincing about the time, his memory, history, war, or the relationship between one's a warrior's glorious return and his adversaries, comrades, friends, or whatever. And I think I just disagree that it's not interesting, because this is what I think with any piece of work, it's what the authors, it comes with the author's preconceived notions. And this is how Nolan interprets what happens due to war and stuff like that. I think it's interesting to view like what Nolan sees as something to be like how to atone or things that need atonement at all. The fact that he views the Trojan horse as the moment that broke Zeus's law or Xenia, even though technically it was the Trojans who broke it first by capturing Helen of Troy, kidnapping Helen. And so, if anything, the way that the Greeks attacked the Trojans or whatever, I forget the exact, but like, if anything, that was a retaliation for breaking Zeus's law in the first place. But in this interpretation, Nolan decided to make it so that the trickery specific to the Trojan horse is what breaks it, and then makes Odysseus more of like a Oppenheimer figure.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating that he wanted to make that interpretation in this modern era. At least for me, I think I might agree that there's no interesting thing about each specific character, because I did agree with your take also that it was kind of like museum dioramas that you're watching. But it's the meta part is interesting. Like even in a museum, it's interesting that the curators chose these moments and framed it in this way to show a narrative to the audience. So I enjoy that I got to see more of what Nolan's like philosophy and perspective of the world through the Odyssey, that I find interesting, even if his interpretation of the characters may not have been itself.
I hear what you're saying. I didn't find it that interesting personally, but I also don't think it really, like, to respond to like Emily Wilson's point that you brought up of like, well, he doesn't make any grand statements on time or memory or yada yada yada. That's okay.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that one of the things that gets forgotten, and I'm one of the people who forgets it so much when something gets adapted, is that literature is its own medium. And one of the things that I read a lot. I'm reading a book right now that fucking rules. It's by the guy who wrote Whale Fall. It's a sci-fi book called The Sixth Nick. And I'm like halfway, maybe like, third of the way through it. It's super fun. Anyways, but one of the things that I love so much about books is that they really allow you to luxuriate in small philosophical moments. And even though the Odyssey was originally written as an oral poem, certainly once it takes the form of book, at least for a guy like me reading it 3,000 years after the fact, I very much feel that, And, one of the authors who's really good at doing this is Neil Stevenson, who will be like, hey, we're going to pause Snow Crash for, 30 pages here so I can tell you about some, you know, arcane bit of Sumerian mythology, or we're going to pause Anathem so that I can have you go to the appendix and read these, like, you know, different ways the multiverse can be structured before we come back to the story, or I'm going to pause Cryptonomicon to tell you how to make a one-time cipher using a deck of cards. You know, like, books really allow you to go super deep in on something like that. And quite frankly, I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that does that. Like, maybe the closest, and I didn't like this movie, I didn't like this moment, but I do think it's an interesting choice, is like in The Big Short, where Margot Robbie's in the bathtub explaining subprime mortgages. That is a moment where it's like, hey, we're going to stop the story to just explain something technical and then get back to it. But I think that's ultimately pretty rare, you know? And I'm also of the mind that, you know, prior to existing on this blue couch in the break room, at one point in my life, I pitched television shows to TV execs.
Sure, yeah.
And there was always this kind of thing where it's like, hey, but like, what's this really about? You know, like, and I think my favorite TV shows do have that kind of subtext where there is something like a little bit deeper they're about, and the surface show is a way to get into that, you know, like, but also, especially for comedy, a lot of the time I'm like, I don't know, man, it just makes me laugh. You know, we don't necessarily need to overthink everything. And one of the things that modern media has gotten caught up in, certainly since the era of prestige TV, certainly since Lost and Mad Men kind of broke what it meant to be a TV show, is that everything gets overanalyzed and over-scrutinized. And it begs the question that everything, or it kind of begs the situation, I guess, that everything is worthy of that level of analysis and scrutiny. If anything is, it's the Odyssey. It's been being scrutinized for 3,000 years, and we're still finding new things in it. But I think, to Emily Wilson's point, let's say, for sake of argument, Nolan did not have anything interesting to say about time or memory or any of that. I don't think he's obligated to, you know, and so to critique him on those grounds, I think, is like not really valid. You know, like, you can make an action movie that works really great as an action movie, or a historical epic that works really great as a historical epic, without having some grand philosophical statement. If you had a grand philosophical statement, you'd write a book of philosophy.
Right.
You know, you're making a movie. It's just a different format.
Yeah.
And like, there are things books can do that movies can't, and vice versa, you know? And so for her to critique that, I understand where she's coming from. And fundamentally, I agree with her. But I also think it kind of is making an assumption about Nolan's filmmaking that the movies doesn't need to have to still work, you know? So yeah, you know, so there's a lot of things in there where I'm like, well, I don't fully agree with her. I understand where she's coming from, but that's part of when I think she's being overly harsh. You know, I'm like, well, yeah, that is true. I agree with it, but I also don't think it really matters as to whether or not the movie is any good. Those are separate things, and they're being conflated in this case.
Right.
Yeah. So,
not necessarily related to this like critique or whatever, but there's something I saw on X, on Twitter. There was a clip going around of this specific podcaster academic. She's like I think she's studying for like a doctorate or something, but she has a podcast. She's from China, and she did like an interview with Nolan, diving into the themes and stuff.
Oh, I haven't had a chance to watch this, but I saw someone posted it in our Slack, I think, right?
They might have. I might have missed that, but I
maybe
definitely saw it
somewhere
on
else.
Twitter.
But anyways, I didn't watch it, so please tell me about it.
But no, it just was interesting because I think the broader reaction to that is that she's able to, you know, talk to Nolan more specifically about the themes and how he came about doing specific stuff, like how she's like, I think that a lot of the idea of atonement wasn't really a thing in the Greek culture. It's more like a Christian value of this idea of atonement. Like, how do you perceive like your work treating atonement as something that has to happen or whatever, something like that. But then a lot of the quote retweets were like, it's crazy that some like in Chinese media, we get to have actual deep conversations about a movie. And in American media, it's like, how many chili peppers can you eat while talking about the movie? There's puppies here.
We made Tom Holland throw up while talking about this 3,000-year-old epic.
The Hot Ones does have good questions, but they're still a gimmick. And it is interesting that like American outlets have done more like sensational and entertainment value things rather than diving into the themes of something.
I love that.
But yeah, I don't know.
I also love so much the idea of, one of my least favorite dog whistles among the blonde-haired, blue-eyed schmucks of the world,
right.
who, much like Emily Wilson with Christopher Nolan, I feel a need to distance myself from, because at a glance, cut to the wide, if you saw this guy on the street and your first thought was, oh, the Proud Boys got an accountant, I'd forgive you.
Sure, sure.
And one of the dog whistles is like, Western culture is under attack, which is like, fuck you, dude.
Yeah.
But one of the foundational texts of Western culture that set up so many of the ways our most foundational myths work was the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to watch this podcast with the Chinese woman you were talking about specifically, to be like, well, how does a woman raised in an Eastern culture with Eastern mythology approach this work? Like, that's such an interesting point of view, I don't have anything else to say on it because I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. I've been playing Rhythm Heaven, and let me tell you this: I don't know how many pool owners are out there. When you have a pool and there is more than one kid around, you are in that pool. Like, you might think these kids will get tired of this pool after 2 or 3 hours. It's nighttime. No one wants to go in the pool now that it's dark. When you get out, it's a little bit chilly. No, these kids are in the pool nonstop. It is. You get out just long enough to eat and digest, then you go back in the pool. You do not have time to engage with thoughtful discourse on Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I barely have time to check my email when I'm not here. I came into the office today like 2 hours earlier than I needed to be here to shoot, in part because I was like, I just have to like have a minute.
Oh, for sure. For sure. There was like just a reel I saw where it was like testing how long it takes for a kid, like they're at the park testing how long it takes until the kid said, let's go home.
Yeah.
And it's never.
Yeah. It's never.
It was like pitch black night, like 9 p.m. And it wasn't like, can we go home now? It's like, so what are we doing now?
Yes.
It's like,
yes.
If they will stay at the park forever if you don't say, let's go home.
I had a party at my place over the weekend because my daughter's in town and my friends don't get to see her that much. And, I want like my friends' kids to meet her. So she has like friends out here and stuff. And, but also my family was here, and my parents know some of my older friends at this point, and at one point, a friend of mine came by who I smoked cigars with, and my father got me into cigars, and my father was here, and I was like, oh, I'd love for the three of us to be able to have a cigar.
Yeah.
So me and the two of them and a couple other people who like cigars were sitting at the end of the pool smoking cigars. And this was at like 6. Like, it's not like primo,
Sure.
It's cooled off enough that you can sit outside without dying. And one of the guys I was smoking cigars with had 2 daughters there, one who was 9, one who was 6. They're not asking him to get in the pool. They're going, Berg, are you done with your cigar yet? Can you get back in the pool? It's like the entire cigar, I'm just trying to like relax and like have a scotch. And they're like, Berg, are you done yet? Get back in the pool. And the second I stand up, they're like, spraying me in the crotch with the water, go, you wet your pants, like you peed in your butt.
That's so funny.
It was great. It makes me so happy to have kids around. I have so much like just loose parenting energy that's built up over, the past 13 years that needs more outlets than I have available for it. But it is just like, yeah, man, these kids, they're just in the pool. They're waiting. They're waiting. Every time I got up, they'd be like, are you done with your cigar? I'd be like, no, I'm getting an ashtray.
They need an adult to bully. That's what they do.
Yes, they really do. Okay, well, let's move on to a little bit of Marvel news from the past week. So two cancellations. One, Wonder Man Season 2, which had been renewed, got unrenewed. And even the showrunner, Andrew Guest, doesn't seem to really understand why. And then also Mahershala Ali is coming out now going like, hey, man, I'm done with Blade. Like, I can't do this anymore. Now, my theory is that Marvel has kind of always, certainly on TV, not really handled its characters that are POCs as well as its white men characters.
Yeah.
It's, you know, Ironheart and Echo kind of got unceremoniously dumped without a lot of fanfare in binge drops, without nearly the same kind of lead up that like Vision Quest is getting.
Sure.
You know, Wonder Man getting unrenewed leaves a bad taste in my mouth. The Blade thing, you know, if I were Mahershala Ali, I'd be frustrated because it's like, you're able to just get Ghost Rider going that quickly, you know, like,
yeah, right.
you know, I don't know how much of this is Josh D'Amaro recently, you know, sort of stepped in as the big cheese at Disney, and, you know, he's cleaning house and getting projects that he feels more comfortable with. I don't know how much of this is with anything. There's always a lot of internal politicking and behind the scenes wrangling that, like, you know, even when you look to like the Xmen movies or something like that, like there's 20 years of Stan Lee trying to get those movies made before they actually happened. So I don't know, you know, where any of this stuff falls in that thing, but Wonder Man was really good.
Yeah.
And it is really weird for a show to get renewed and then unrenewed without there being like a major, you know, like let's say hypothetically speaking, the part of Simon Williams in Wonder Man was played by Jared Leto. And then let's say hypothetically a documentary came out that made some troubling allegations.
Yeah.
And then it got canceled. Then you're like, yeah.
Right.
Then you don't make Wonder Man season 2. Nothing like that has happened. So I don't know what your theory is on what happened with Wonder Man or what's going on at Marvel in the midst of all this. Are they just focusing more on, well, even more on movies than it's like, what happens with fucking Blade? How do you explain that?
This is where, unfortunately, I'm going to constantly flip-flop with this idea. Is that
please? I'm here for it. I think it's okay for your mind to change occasionally.
I'm a perpetual fence sitter, okay? I love the fence.
But I think that's okay. You know, the people who never change their minds are just not listening to anything. If you go back and forth on stuff, it just means you're like actually taking things in.
Yeah.
So anyways, I say that to put you at ease.
Thank you. But I mean, even in this one episode, I was saying early on that if a thing is good enough, I don't really care about the continuity of everything.
Yeah, sure.
But I think with those are like small picture continuity. I think stuff like Wonder Man and Blade, I think my theory is that they were too caught up on how to fit that in the broader MCU narrative.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case with Blade.
It's just like Blade is a you know, he belongs in like the magic and the dark side of the Marvel universe, where he's hunting vampires.
Yeah, it's more supernatural, more horror.
Very supernatural. The implications of Blade being a vampire hunter is that like vampires are always in the MCU. That means that during these specific times, where were the vampires? I mean, this is the question they have with the X-Men, generally speaking. But I mean, with that question, it's like there probably just is no X-Men. But Blade as a character who, unless this is an origin story of the first time Blade is coming into this universe.
Right, like do vampires also come online when Blade comes online?
You know, it's like a question of like, well, how does this fit in? And with Wonder Man, I think with the upcoming stuff with Doomsday and Secret Wars and the soft reboot rehash of everything, it's like, well, how are we going to continue with the old continuity that makes sense with the new continuity? And I think rather than trying to figure it out, I think they're like, let's just cut it.
Well, I hear that. I hear what you're saying. I won't listen to you anymore because you're a flip-flopper.
You set me up. You set me up to say this opinion.
I did. You fell for it. Flip-floppers are morons.
Oh my God. I'm a moron.
No, I hear what you're saying. You know, like, and I guess for me, if Wonder Man, you know, Wonder Man, I thought it had a pretty satisfying ending. Like, I really liked, you know, just that they're buddies again.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm honestly fine ending the story there. And if Marvel had never renewed it had never announced a renewal and then taken it away, and it was just like, hey, it's not getting a second season.
Yeah.
They'd be like, yeah, c'est la vie. You know, like most Marvel TV shows don't. You know, like Loki season 2 is a rarity. I'm still flabbergasted that they're making a season 3 of Daredevil Born again. You know, like But I think the thing you're saying about overthinking the continuity is probably correct. You know, it's part of why Captain Marvel was set in the 90s.
Yeah.
Is because they were like, we don't know what to do. We're just going to put it over here. You know, like, but I think that's okay. You know, like, and this is one of the places where I get frustrated with Marvel is where the Tetris of continuity that is required by a shared cinematic universe gets in the way of being able just to tell a good story.
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
And again, I think when the shared universe works, it works really well. But this is where we're seeing the double-edged sword. This is the other edge, you know, is where, yeah, hey, now, like, if that is the reason, and we should be very clear, we're theorizing, right? Like because no one's really, even, it seems like Mahershala Ali doesn't have a clear answer. Yeah. Showrunner Andrew Guest doesn't have a clear answer. We can only guess at what lies in the minds of the Disney Marvel executive team. But if it is the case that it comes out that, like, yeah, hey, we didn't know how to justify the fact that vampires have been here all along, you know, and so they must have been there in Werewolf by Night, you know, or whatever. Like, you know, like, I think that's a fair question to be stumped by. I don't know if it's a question that, like, would have made or broken, okay. Make or break, or broken, you know, either the second season of Wonder Man or a Blade movie, you know.
And it is a shame because I think Wonder Man was such a good figure for the potential new X-Men saga or mutant saga, because I think he was set up to be a mutant in this world.
It felt that way based on, like,
that way.
He had, like, the classic, like, his powers came online in adolescence, and yeah.
Plus, like, if we see the Odyssey used more as the anti-mutant force, he was they were the antagonist of his show to, like, build that, and him as, like, I mentioned this in our, like, Wonder Man reviews of, like, him kind of like a Wolverine figure to the X-Men, maybe like a teacher out of the water, like reluctant teacher type of person. I think would be really interesting. And in fact, I might go as far as to say that I think Wonder Man might return as a character in the MCU, generally speaking. But I think with the Secret Wars reboot, I think one of the things that they want to do with the Secret Wars reboots is bring back dead characters, namely a version of Iron Man. And because, you know, I'm forgetting the character's name, but the Mandarin.
Trevor Slattery.
Because Trevor Slattery is unfortunately pretty tied with our, current Iron Man, it might not make much sense post Secret Wars. Like, okay, so this is like the Mandarin of the pre Iron Man, but now there's probably gonna be a new, like, is the new Iron Man gonna have any relation to that stuff? Probably not. I don't think. So I think maybe they initially were like, yeah, we could figure this out, and then the more they thought about it, they're like, okay, so what's happening post Secret Wars? How much of a reboot is it actually? And I think they're figuring out, like, well, it's probably, we'll keep some storylines, but if the goal is to bring back dead characters, which I think it is, it'll be a little bit more difficult to bring, specifically Wonder Man Season 2. I think Wonder Man can still be a character in the MCU, the same character.
Yeah.
But he might not have the same relation to Trevor Slattery, which is going to be tragic because that was what made the show.
That's what made the show so
really good.
Yeah, it was just like such a good, like, oh man, these two guys are both deeply passionate about being actors, and one of them happens to have, like, a rage problem that destroyed the soundstage. You know, like, but yeah, so I was really bummed to see that, and, like, you know, also Andrew Guest is a friend of a friend. And, like, when we were all younger, he was, like, someone I would run into at parties, and he was always just, like, a really nice, funny guy. So I was, like, so happy to see him succeed in that way. I knew a couple people who wrote on Wonder Man. I would have loved for them to get more work.
Yeah.
And hopefully they will. But yeah, it left a bad taste in my mouth.
Oh yeah, I wish they didn't say they renewed it, just because, like, I was like, whoa, they're really going to renew it. It's kind of exciting.
Well, also, like, I think people don't appreciate how tenuous the a career in this industry can be. You know, when you're writing on a show or when you're involved with a show and you hear that show's going to get picked up again, that means financial security. That means health insurance for another year, like, and to give people that hope and then take it away.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily malicious, but it is cruel.
It's,
and I'm sure it's happening at a level where they're like, well, we just won't make another season. And it's like, man, like that whole crew, like there's probably like 200 people who had heard had been renewed and were like, oh, thank God, I'll have a job in 2027.
Yeah.
I also don't love that. Blade's a little bit different because it was so early on in development, but for Wonder Man, that's like really, it's just it's a bad look. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah, and it was a good show. I don't know if I'd be this upset if it was a bad show. I'd probably be like, everyone on that crew deserves to be in a bread line.
Right. If it's a bad show, you should get no money.
But I also just personally really loved it, so.
I think that's a good point. Like, regardless of the narrative reasonings, or like if it probably was the right move to do that, but the fact that they didn't account for how it would affect the people working on it,
it just feels cold.
Yeah, at best, it's just really bad mismanagement and negligence.
Yeah,
at worst, it's cruel.
It's a bummer. It's just times are tough, man. And like to think you have a job and then hear like via deadline, you're like, oh, I guess not. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Not great. Not great. And Disney just did the same thing to that like ESPN analyst who found out on the air that he was getting laid off.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I think I missed that.
I don't know the guy's name because I don't.
That's crazy.
I haven't watched a sport in like a decade.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just like, so that's why it like also kind of ties into this pattern of Disney being very callous with the way they're, addressing efficiencies, and redundancies and laying people off. That it kind of feeds into sort of a broader thing in the Josh D'Amaro era of like, every time a CEO shifts, there's going to be big changes, but it seems like Disney's just been very they've been very doge about it in a way that feels gross to me. So I don't love it. I don't love it. Okay, let's move on. This next thing I want to let you tee up because you're closer to it than I am.
It just was a really interesting conversation. So I wanted to address the fact that Hank Green was caught using AI.
Yeah.
And so it's really funny because the way he was caught was not at all intentional. He has a show called Ask Hank Anything, or he brings on guests who will ask him random questions and he will answer them. And it's a fun little thing. And sometimes he has a segment called Future Hank, where if he doesn't have the knowledge at the moment, he will do research post the production and put in a segment where he explains further what they're talking about. And in the segment, he is talking about some kind of like about language and words. And he says something, and I appreciate the pushback, something else. And for people, they're like, appreciate the pushback. He's not talking to anybody. What's the pushback? That sounds like what an AI would say.
Yeah.
In response to something. So he must have put that as a response. The irony is, he was actually saying he appreciates the pushback of what the guest was saying previously, but the way it was framed, people interpreted it as
right. Yeah.
He randomly said this without any context.
And then it turned out he had been using it. But
it turned out that call out was correct because he admitted later that he does use AI in the process, not necessarily to write the scripts, not necessarily to do everything.
Yeah, I read his statement on his subreddit.
He specifically says he uses it in helping with research and gathering papers. Sometimes he uses like AI generated notes to get a clear understanding of something. But that has been admitted. Another thing this is bringing up, which I didn't know. In one of his podcasts, he has a podcast with his wife where they just talk about stuff. One of the things he admitted there, which was later actually cut from the episode, but the original take had a moment where he admitted that he used an LLM to help synthesize 2 chapters of a book he's writing, where he wanted to synthesize these 2 chapters. He thought maybe it was too long. And so he asked a LLM to synthesize it. And then,
just kind of combine the 2 of them into one chapter.
And he later clarifies that it wasn't like, oh, ChatGPT, please synthesize these 2 chapters. He was trying to like bounce ideas of how to do that. But again, it's the fact that he's implementing these into his workflow that is starting to make people upset. But what I find fascinating specifically is that Hank Green is a person who is well trusted, and particularly on the people who I would say are like on the progressive side of things. And the fact that he's using AI instead of being like, oh, I wonder why this person I trust is using AI and in a way that he feels justified. People are kind of using this as a betrayal to his ideals, and also like a way that he's fallen and that we should no longer trust him. I just think that whole idea of like this AI puritanical,
yeah,
is just fascinating to me. But yeah, I mean, you're more outside of this. When you see all this in context, like, how do you feel about both Hank's usage of AI and like the people's responses to it?
I mean, reading about it, I have big feelings about AI broadly, which we can get into or not get into, time permitting. But, I think that I was reading an article this morning in MIT Tech Review about the way in which task-oriented behavior can really warp the output of an AI engine, which is what happened recently with OpenAI and Hugging Face. But the Tech Review was citing an older issue with something called, it was called like Coast Runner. And Dario Amodei, pre-Anthropic, had built an AI to like play this game, and it found a way to maximize its score in the game without actually completing the game. Like, it would basically just go in a loop in a corner and get power-ups and,
Sure.
and so it was winning, but it didn't have the context necessary to like actually play the game. And it sounds a little bit like, because I thought Hank Green's letter in Reddit, I thought it was a pretty good apology, and I'm not someone who felt a need for apology from him. So like, maybe, but it felt like even on Reddit, people were like, hey, thanks, man, appreciate this. And one of the things he had said was he was trying to do too much.
Yeah.
And the way I read that was he was task-oriented on maximizing his output, which, kind of goes back a little bit to what you were saying earlier about how, like, in China, you can have a thoughtful discussion as a podcast, and that's the hook.
Right.
And here we have Hot Ones. And it's a little bit like, well, to be a creator on YouTube, you are fighting for attention space with so many other people.
Yeah.
Every new upload gives you another shot on goal.
Yeah.
And so I'm sympathetic to him. However, I also think there was something else I read earlier this week, and it was a professor talking about how he discusses the use of AI with his students, and he had a pretty rational explanation for it that I think is a pretty nuanced take, where he's like, it's not, Hank Green said himself in his letters, like, there's people who are like, don't use it for anything, and I use it to tie my shoes. This professor's thing was like, I think of it like going to the gym. Like the point of going to the gym is to do the work. It's not just to like if you just needed a weight lifted from here to there, you would use like, a furniture dolly or something. Yeah. But the point of going to the gym is because the point is to do the thing. And I think that from my outside perspective, it seems like what Hank Green got caught up in, I don't want to put any words in his mouth, was instead of doing the thing, instead of being fascinated by the research he was doing, he was caught up in trying to get the video published.
Yeah.
And so he was using these things to shave time off. And I think that's not a good way to use AI personally. It's not enough for me to vilify him, but I appreciate why people felt like it felt betrayed. I appreciate that. And I think his apology was pretty good.
I mean, it is like I think even him responding is like him realizing that that his work is being diluted. And like understanding that, like,
it was a very human response.
Yeah.
Like reading his response and coming into it so late in the game, for as much of a controversy as I'm sure it feels like for people who are like really loyal to that YouTube channel. and the stuff he creates. Coming to it like sort of at the end of things after he's addressed it, it really felt like him going, yeah, hey, you know what? I completely understand why, my relationship with my audience is built on trust, that what you're hearing are my words, and how that trust has been eroded by finding out that I hadn't been disclosing my usage of AI and the ways I was using it. And this is something we see all over the place, right?
Sure.
Like, Expedition 33, Claire Obscura Expedition 33 won all these Game of the Year awards, came out, they'd been using AI in some early parts of the development process. People got pissed, and that's the first example that comes to mind. But like the amount of stories that come out every week where it's like, hey, turns out this company's been using AI, and everybody goes like, oh, come on, it's really common. And I feel a lot of sympathy both for a creator who is trying to make ends meet with his YouTube channel, like finding ways to increase output. And I also feel a great deal of sympathy for people who are like, hey, part of what I liked about this was it felt human and it felt sincere. And it doesn't feel sincere now that I know AI is in the mix. Like I have a lot of sympathy for both sides. And I feel like ultimately the dialogue happening between those two was shockingly productive and felt like people were genuinely speaking in good faith on either sides of the issue. Broadly, I personally fall much more into the fuck AI camp of things. For a bunch of reasons. I don't use it for anything. I think there are valid uses of it. I think using AI like a search engine is pretty good. I think there's a lot of very specific niche uses of AI in science and data processing that like I really support. But I think using it generatively, at least for me, I have a lot of problems with the way these LLMs are trained on training data using copyrighted materials, and then, then like those authors, don't get compensated for that. And then also you can regurgitate their works using prompt injections and stuff. I think the way that Google is using its Gemini overviews is really problematic. I think, Google made a business of pointing people to other websites for 20 years. For 20 years, Google made money selling ads because somebody would go like, how know if foot infected, and then you'd go to Google and it'd be like, well, here's an ad for fungus cream or whatever, but also here's 4 websites where you can read about it. Google got greedy and then eventually started being like, well, yeah, the websites will be on page 2, but the first like 12 things will be things people paid to page rank higher. And then people were like, well, I'll just Google how to know if foot infected Reddit, and then Google started going like, well, here's the Gemini summary of all these Reddit posts. Right. And now Reddit doesn't get that traffic, which you can make an argument over whether or not Reddit should be entitled to traffic from Google or any search engine, but that's how it was. And now that Google's using Gemini, there's a lot of people who don't get the clicks they would have gotten otherwise. We've seen impacts with that just in our brand sales on new Rockstars. People don't, the algorithmic traffic is down on YouTube broadly, which makes ad sales harder to do. Like if you Google, hey, what are the Easter eggs in Spider-Man? And instead of getting a link to our Spider-Man breakdown, you get the summary. Like, you might not watch. You might get the one answer you wanted. Like I've certainly been guilty of that, of Googling something and just in scanning the Gemini summary, being like, okay, now I know. I'm not going to go to the Cleveland Clinic's website to find out if my foot is infected. And I want everyone to know my feet are fine.
A lot of foot infection.
My foot is not infected
right now. Trying to say
and so I think that AI is a tool like anything else. Fire can heat your house. Fire can burn your house down. It can cook a steak. It can burn a steak.
Yeah.
I think there's ways to use AI that are ethical. Even someone like Cory Doctorow, who's a hugely outspoken critic of AI, has said openly that he will use AI in his work a lot of the time. Like he'll use it for certain kinds of note-taking and pulling quotes from Google. And it sounds very much like that's what Hank Green was trying to do. but not disclosing it, I think, feels like where the trust was broken. And it feels like now he's talking openly about it and rebuilding that trust. And I think that's the most adult response you can have to that situation.
No, 100%. But it's just the AI conversation like keeps going. It keeps going.
It keeps going. And the AI is progressing faster than we are able to regulate it, in part because we have the most dysfunctional Congress in history. And it's not great that this is something that's happening at the same time, you know, like, but I don't love the use of generative AI. I won't touch it myself. I don't have it. I might have a ChatGPT account from like when it first came out because my brother's really into it. And he was like, you guys check this thing out. And I asked it to make a Run the Jewels, a song in the style of Run the Jewels about what the qualities a good bagel has. And one of the lyrics was about how a good bagel doesn't need to be toasted. And I remember being like, okay, so it gets it.
Wait, this robot's not that bad.
Right, okay, it understands. Okay. You know, you got to have the chew and the crust. Yeah, you know, but
that's all you need.
But yeah, so you know, I think ultimately it's a pretty interesting conversation because for as much as I am much more on the fuck AI side of things, I do think that these kinds of conversations are what builds trust in it as a tool.
Right.
I don't want to build trust in it as a tool because these vampire private equity and VC-backed firms are sucking all the lifeblood out of the whole fucking country and concentrating it more and more in the hands of asshats like Sam Altman and Elon Musk. But I also hope that something like this might be able to find like a cure to cancer on a genetic level. And so I want these models to be used well.
It is funny. That is like the missing ingredient of the equation is like, well, the people making it aren't trying to make good tools. They're trying to make money.
No, they're trying to make a buck.
They're trying to make money.
They don't care. If they weren't doing AI, they'd be doing some other tech grift.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
You think Elon Musk is 100%. Uniquely situated among human beings to be so good at cars, batteries, rockets, and AI while doing as much ketamine as anyone possibly can? You know, like, it's not likely.
I mean, there's a reason why Sam Altman, like, this used to be a private company. Now it's public.
Yes.
Like, that's, and then the fact that he used to say, like, we're not going to do anything with, like, ads. We're not going to do adult content. We're not going to do video stuff. But now he rescinded on basically everything because they need money.
It's like you're not doing like a principled, like philosophical investigation of like, well, what are the precepts of consciousness and can they be substantiated in silicon instead of a carbon-based life form? You don't care about that. You're trying to make money, and this is the modern gold rush.
Maybe at one point he did, but when he saw the billions coming in, he's like, wait, I don't care about this anymore.
And realistically, if I was in his position, I'd probably do the same thing. I don't think of myself as a particularly like money grubbing guy, as evidenced by my whole deal.
Which I'm saying maybe, no, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it.
What?
I agree. I'm saying like if you were faced with billions, I don't think you would.
I worry that if I wasn't an opportunity, you're telling me if someone came up, they're like, hey, I'll give you $1 billion. But you got to go out there and just say some like fucking nonsense about AI. I'd be like, yeah, but with that $1 billion, like I'd be set for life. My daughter would be set for life. Like, I don't know if I'd be able to say no. Luckily, I'm not in that position. I challenge one of you watching to put me in that position.
if you were to have that kind of money and put me in that position.
Here's this week's Breakroom Dare. Give us $1 billion and see how much we'll debase ourselves for your money. You know, like, I like Chug Bureau for like super chats. I don't see any of that super chat money. Fair. I just keep having health insurance, you know? So like if I'm willing to do that, like the bar's pretty low and I'm like, oh, I can't burp. I got to chug another Bureau because they gave us $50, you know, like what would I do for $1 billion? I don't know, you know, like I'm only human, but.
You do have a kid, so I guess it is a little different.
Yeah, but is it? I think I'd do the same shit. If you just said $1 billion and I didn't have a kid, I think I'd be like, yeah, okay, light my penis on fire. I don't know. You know, like what wouldn't I do for $1 billion? I don't know.
Maybe. We gotta do the experiment in real life. Somebody offer me $1 billion.
Offer me $1 billion.
I'm saying I wouldn't take it. But hey, test me.
Put $1 billion in escrow and get like an impartial third-party judge to be like, okay, we'll get Berg to go start writing a novel using AI only. You know, like, would I do it? Yeah, I'd probably feel maybe this is my Trojan horse. $1 billion snuck into my Troy, the Troy of my personality. In the capsule of like, but you got to say you love AI.
Oh God.
You know, I'd probably do it.
Oh God.
I'm not proud of it, but I'd probably do it.
It's like
I gotta own that.
It would be stupid not to do it for $1 billion.
I think I'd talk myself into it so hard.
But
I've walked away from jobs on principle many a time.
I'm saying
they were low paying jobs.
They weren't $1 billion.
They weren't $1 billion bucks. They weren't $1 billion bucks. But yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna choose to believe that I would stay on the high horse. My horse will stay high.
All right.
And we'll see.
You heard it here first. Famous flip-flopper Brian Kim says he wouldn't take $1 billion.
I wouldn't do it. You know, I have standards.
Okay, we've been, I always forget to check what time we started, but I feel like we've been going a while. Yet again, we've run out of time to talk about X-Men 97. Do you have any hot takes on where we are with X-Men 97?
Yeah, maybe not a huge discussion, but from the episodes that we missed, I did take some notes. The specific last episode, the one in Strangeland Savage Heart.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting, and I don't really know how I feel about it personally, but to have the moral framework of the episode be in the perspective of Nightcrawler.
I loved that.
I thought it was really fun, but it is still interesting that it's still a Christian perspective of things.
Yeah.
But it is Nightcrawler's specific interpretation of the Christian belief, which I think is fun. Because at the end of the day, the other Exodus, I think, also was he
was a crusader.
Yeah. And was also doing some interpretations of the Christian text. I think there is something to say about like how does humanity or do the people have can we cast moral judgment or like dole out punishment, or is that something for higher beings to do? Is a really interesting thing to think about. But I think specifically in this current era where things are like so like chaotic and we crave maybe some kind of atonement for people like I guess like it's a Trump presidency or Sam Altman and like all the tech bros, like should they be punished for something for the crimes that they have committed? And I think a lot of people would say yes, and even me now, I would say yes. I'm in just the context of our current era where we're so tired of like things not working in our favor or in the way that we believe it should be. The fact that the general public feeling of things like political violence isn't like completely like, oh my God, political violence. It's more like, you know what, that guy deserved it. Or like not just like,
well, no, it's like all the Luigi,
the Luigi Mangione stuff. And like, there's so many of these things where like, you know what, we're kind of in an era of like we're moving past that as a concept, and to have that brought back, I'm again two minds where I find it interesting to think about, but I also find it particularly naive in a current era. But this as a take of the 90s X-Men does work. Yeah. But I find it in the context, in a vacuum of itself, a really compelling moral dilemma of like, what do you do with a cruel person? Do you have who is unrepentant? Yeah. Do you have the right to dole out righteous justice? Or is that something that you have to rely on higher powers, whether that's God or the court system, the justice system? And the conclusion is the justice system / higher whatever. Because like even in this episode, it's like Nightcrawler's like, we're gonna try it. We're gonna kill him without a trial, without the court, and that's like a whole deal. And the same thing with like Daredevil. His whole thing is like, we need like trial. He's a Catholic and all that stuff. But it's weird that like I personally feel like it's a bit of a dated ideology, but I don't know if that says more about like how I feel generally about the world. But
no,
yeah.
I hear what you're saying. It's similar to the conversation we had after Disclosure Day, where it's like the big reveal at Disclosure Day is like once people find out their government lies,
Right.
they're
Aliens
gonna
are real.
it's gonna rock their world. It's like, what are you doing? But I thought in this episode, my sort of response to it was more, it's the moral dilemmas in a lot of genre fiction, not only superhero stuff, but a lot of like horror movies and stuff, are subtext. And this episode made them text.
Yeah.
And they did so specifically through Nightcrawler, who, is obviously really wrestling with a lot of personal issues on top of his faith. And I thought that was a fascinating choice for that character.
Yeah.
I thought the trial was like a fun venue in which to allow these characters to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But, ultimately for me, I kind of watch it and I'm like, hey, I don't care whether or not Exodus kills this guy. Not as like a critique of the show. Like I was invested in the trial, but like me personally, I'm like, why kill that guy when you can instead engage in like restorative justice? Like that was something that like during the George Floyd protests, I started reading a lot more like sociology and criminology works. And there was a lot of like, this idea of like, hey, this kind of vindictive, you go to hell forever, like, Judeo-Christian, or I guess Christian ideology is like, yeah, and you get punished for your sins, as opposed to this like kind of more modern and admittedly more fringe within criminology, but, idea of like, hey, let's like rehabilitate these people.
Right.
Let's like, hey, like, if you can take the parties that you have wronged and your punishment is you being forced to better their lives, that's more useful, And so in the episode, watching it, I was like, this guy's never going to help a fucking mutant. He's a lost cause. Kill his ass, Nightcrawler. But I did kind of love that I tuned in to be like, oh man, like they're in the savage land. I'm going to get to see dinosaurs. Instead, got like a really thoughtful and nuanced like kind of discussion about the nature of faith and mercy and, all this sort of stuff. And then also got Bishop and Polaris riding in on pterodactyls, shooting lasers at everybody. Like the whiplash between those things was just like, I thought handled really well. There's like huge tonal shifts and they're all happening in the midst of this like menagerie of lost mutants, like the judge is a giant Russian guy covered in steel, like it. Anyways, I really love X-Men 97. I love that it's willing to have these really earnest and sincere, moments and themes so on display in the episode. Mm-hmm. It's not like there and if you blink, you miss it. It's like, no, you could close your eyes for a solid 10 minutes this episode and still not miss it when you opened them back up. And I thought that was really cool. I thought that was just a great choice.
Ultimately, I think it made for a really compelling episode. Side tangents is, I like that they're kind of making Polaris and
they going fuck.
They're gonna be a thing.
They're gonna bump uglies real soon.
And then also, I think somebody owes Gambit an apology.
I know commentary. It's mad at me for saying Gambit is mid, but also like I don't know. That's how I feel about him.
He looks like he killed Apocalypse, so.
Yeah, true. Maybe.
I mean, granted, we don't know what actually happened, but his card is there.
Yes.
Apocalypse is dead.
Yes.
So he might have done it.
But also Apocalypse sometimes just withers up and moves to a dormant phase.
That's true.
So I don't know, but I stand by my I can't deny that during Remember It, like Gambit like fucking nukes that kaiju sentinel. But personally, I as a kid playing the video games and stuff, it was always like, yeah, he tosses his little cards, like never captured my imagination quite the same way that the other X-Men did. But I hear you comments. I promise you, I have read comic books. Like, for
I
Christ's
love
sake.
that. It's like, have you read the But also, even if like we take into consideration the comics, it's like the comics will make any character unbelievably powerful if the story calls for it.
Yeah.
Like Gambit is like the whole thing is like Gambit has the potential to be an Omega level mutant, but he had parts of his brains lobotomized so that he couldn't do all that. But it's all like in the context of the show, though, you know, he just
Yeah,
powers up.
that's my thing. Is he's never for me up until season 1 of X-Men 97.
Yeah.
I never had an oh shit Gambit moment. Whereas I'm constantly having those moments with Charles, Magneto,
Sure, yeah.
Storm, Rogue, Wolverine. You know, like. That's why I say he's Jubilee level, because I still haven't had my oh shit Jubilee moment.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting.
And even then, as other people point out in the comics or in the comments, like Comic Jubilee also has the potential to be very powerful.
You can't tell a story about a character and everyone's like, and in issue 1 they peaked.
Yeah.
You know, like
just in the show.
Yeah.
In the show.
But yeah, I mean, we'll find out. It seems like we're going to see him this week.
Definitely. Like that's setting up for Gambit as a horseman.
Yeah.
But like, what is that going to look like without Apocalypse there? Well, who knows?
Who knows? Who can say?
That's
all right. There's so much we still haven't gotten to. There's some of you left some good comments about Doomsday. I want to shout you out, even though we don't have time to read your full comment because we have to go.
We gotta go.
But really great comment from KD VII about one could argue that the entire Doom is entire MCU is the build up to Doom. Really good comment from Vespa TTV about comparing Age of Ultron's build up or lack thereof to the way we're getting build up for Doom. A lot of people talking about back and forth about like, you know, the way in which, yeah, like Thanos was present, but like, you know, really kind of didn't do much in Guardians. I think that Thanos was built up more than Doom, but I don't think he was built up quite as much as we remember it, having watched all those movies pretty recently.
100%.
You know, it wasn't like they fought him once before Infinity War. Like most people knew who Thanos was from watching Eric go like, okay, so the guy in the purple chair, you know.
And I would even venture to say that for Thanos it was necessary because I think before the MCU, the general public had no idea who Thanos was. But the general public does have an idea.
Doom, I think,
Dr.
has a
Doom
higher
is.
profile. Yeah.
So it's like when we see him on the big screen, it's like, oh, it's Dr. Doom. The idea I knew.
Yeah, it's the same way. Like, you know, you don't need to tell Spider-Man or Batman's origin story ever again. Like they're there. I don't think Doom is Spider-Man or Batman level, but I think he's more known.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay. Well, I think we got to wrap it up there, right? Like,
yeah, I think that's a good time.
Well, that's it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe to this video on YouTube and subscribe to the Breakroom channel on YouTube. Please comment. We're trying to really be engaged there. Brian's been posting shorts. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Threads, Breakroom NR, where Brian's been posting this stuff, and TikTok too, right?
Yeah. So we forgot to pass through to our old TikTok, so I had to make a new TikTok. But the new one is official.
Beautiful.
It is official.
Beautiful. If you want to support us directly, consider buying some merch from nerdriot.shop. I haven't seen Spider-Man yet, but I know that Absolute Potato is also a meme.
Yeah.
I think Absolute Potato with Gigi's face
That
on
should
it.
be a good-
I think
that's a
that'd be
good
a good
merch.
shirt.
That's good merch.
So go to nerdriot.shop. Tag us on socials if you already have a picture of it. But thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time, and we will talk about Spider-Man in the next episode. I promise you I'm seeing it tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
And next time you guys are in the break room after work,
We'll be
there.
here.
We'll be there.
Toodaloo.
Bye.